To create an image is to create a world. A parallel universe fashioned from light and colour. Images are seductive. From childhood onwards, when we stare into our very first picture books, we are hooked on them, and it's an obsession we never lose. We cherish family photographs, we hang prints and paintings on our walls, and we sit for hours transfixed in front of cinema screens. Because we don't just love images. Over time, we come to depend on them. In the second half of the 20th century, images became more seductive than ever. Psychologists and ad men use them to tap into our desires and sell us their products. While artists and filmmakers harness the power of dreams, creating visions of paradise that made audiences swoon. In an increasingly permissive society, these visions were usually male fantasies, with women the objects of desire. But female artists then turned the tables, becoming perhaps the most potent image makers of all. These artists had different styles, different mediums, and of course very different agendas. But all of them used images to create new worlds, fantasy worlds, into which a voraciously visual public could escape. What do you do when you want to preserve a memory? To mark an important moment in your life? To keep a loved one close? You take a photograph. Images, particularly photographs, have an extraordinary ability to trigger emotions and memories in us. That's why we take them, and that's why we cherish them. Photographs help us navigate life itself, and they've become so invaluable that it's difficult to think of doing anything important without having to depend on them. Since the first photograph was taken almost 200 years ago, people have captured trillions of ordinary moments. The problem is, most of them are simply lost to history. But here in Paris, some of those images are being preserved for all to see. The Anonymous Project is a collection of almost 1 million Kodak colour slides dating from the 1940s to the 1980s. All of them were taken with cheap portable cameras by unknown amateur photographers. But amid the everyday, you can find the spectacular. 3 boys dressed up in Little League outfits pose for a snap outside a clapboard house. It's a charming, all-American scene, but it's also impeccably composed. It actually reminds me of a Renaissance altarpiece, the way the boys are symmetrically framed by the buildings, and the way they're shown full length, almost with saintly attributes, the bat and the gloves. But what for me brings this photograph to life are their facial expressions. One of them is melancholic, the other one is grinning at the camera, and this guy in the middle is perhaps dreaming of ice cream. It's a really, really beautiful image, and if it had been taken by Robert Frank or Martin Parr or another master of 20th century photography, it would be in all the art history books and deservedly a baby. My mobile phone is filled with photographs of my 1-year-old son, and I can never seem to stop looking at them. And here we have an image of 2 young parents in an exceptionally 50s front room cooing over their newborn child, and I suspect it was taken by an excited grandparent who'd come to meet the newest member of the family. But what's also revealing about this picture is the background, where we can see other photographs of other children framed on the side table. And that, I think, reminds us of how important photographs were to ordinary people. Many photographs were put in boxes and never seen again, but others were placed in prominent positions in the home and accompanied people throughout their lives. Our hopes and dreams are encased in the images we create, in the pictures we place around us. Each of these photographs is unique, of course, but they tell a similar story about what connects us as human beings. And yet our inclination to document our lives in this way isn't natural at all. We have been encouraged to do it by one of the century's most successful fantasy factories. In the 1950s, Kodak came up with a campaign to increase sales. They called holidays, birthdays and weddings Kodak moments and claimed they had to be photographed in order to be remembered. The campaign was a huge success. So much so that 70 years later, we are still obeying its instructions. Kodak understood something quite profound. We as a species are immensely susceptible to images. They get under our skin and they manipulate our thoughts and feelings in more direct but subconscious ways than words. And that is why people and organizations now like to bombard us with them. Especially when they want to sell us things. Adverts now surround us on every side. The average person is exposed to up to 10,000 of them every day. They are often constructing a fantasy world in which we're happier, healthier, and more successful.
They then suggest we can make that dream come true if we simply go out and buy the products they're advertising. It might sound cynical, but it works exceptionally well.
These adverts don't work by accident. They are the result of decades of scientific research dating back to the middle of the 20th century. Austrian psychologist Ernst Dichter moved to the United States in 1938. He was convinced that advertising would work better if companies understood their customers more intimately. In 1946, he set up an organization in New York State to put his theories into practice.
This is the Institute for Motivational Research, a place devoted to the intriguing business of finding out why people behave as they do, why they buy as they do, why they respond to advertising as they do.
To get to grips with the complex mind of the American consumer, Dichter and his team conducted in-depth psychological tests. Dichter brought members of the public to his institute and studied them closely. He surrounded them with products and spied on them from another room. He got them to talk to each other in sessions he called focus groups, and he interrogated them personally, asking them bizarre and often invasive questions about their private lives. What did you dream about last night? What do other people think of you? What are you most scared of? What are your deepest desires?
We don't go out and ask directly, why do you buy, why don't you? What we try to do instead is to understand the total personality, the self-image of the customer. We use all the resources of modern social sciences. It opens up some stimulating psychological techniques for selling any new product.
Dichter was convinced that people were attracted to products not for practical reasons, but because they satisfied a profound psychological need. Women purchased bars of soap to become better, purer people. Men bought cars to fulfill their frustrated sexual desires. Dichter therefore advised his clients to identify consumers' most passionate dreams and then persuade those consumers that only their product could make those dreams come true. Plausible or not, Dichter's theories changed advertising. Ad men increasingly probed the nation's psyche, creating an idealized world of happy housewives and macho men. Producing adverts that tapped into America's most deep-rooted fantasies. The Wild West. Frontier country. A realm of rugged landscapes and rugged people. A world that inspired more films, television shows and books than any other. And one that's now synonymous with a single product.
There were two defining features of Marlboro cigarettes in the early 1950s. First, the brand was failing. It accounted for less than 1% of all cigarette sales. And second, Marlboro cigarettes were primarily for women.
Where there's a man, there's a Marlboro. You get a lot to like with a Marlboro filter, flavor, flip-top box.
In 1954, Marlboro decided to transform their brand image, aiming their product squarely at men, fetishizing a series of alpha male archetypes.
What kind of a man is he? I'm a guy who likes to work on my car. I like to take it apart and put it back together. I get to working on it and forget where I am, what time it is. I even forget to eat. You don't forget to smoke, though.
But very quickly, one vision of masculinity came to define the brand: the cowboy.
You don't see many wild stallions anymore.
The Marlboro Man was the embodiment of an old American dream.
And even if he did run off 3 of your best mares, he's one of the last of a wild...
Which Marlboro tapped into with some highly visual advertising. A carefully crafted series of images designed to manipulate the viewer.
Come to where the flavor is. Come to Marlboro country.
The striking thing about that advert, at least by the standards of the day, is how indirect it is. There is none of the usual sales speak. The cigarettes themselves don't appear on screen until halfway through. And at the end of the commercial, it doesn't say, "Buy Marlboro cigarettes."
Many image makers are creators of dream worlds. Some can be used to sell and to seduce, but others can be used to escape.
I remember, as a child, going to bed at night is like coming in for a good landing. Wow, you've made it again. Get into that bed with the book. It's all clear sailing after that. Then you can go anywhere you want.
Maurice Sendak was born in Brooklyn in 1938. When bouts of childhood illness confined him to his bedroom, he escaped from reality by writing and drawing, conjuring up fantastical worlds in his imagination. Decades later, he drew on those fantasies to create what is now one of the most loved books of the 20th century.
This is my own copy of Where the Wild Things Are, which I have loved and treasured since 1982. My parents read it to me countless times when I was a child, and now I read it to my own son, who loves it just as much as I did.
The story of Max's adventure is only a few sentences long, but Sendak's imagery is unforgettable.
That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around. And an ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day to where the wild things are. It's a simple story, but it is, I think, a really quite profound one. Before Sendak, most picture books idealised childhood, presenting it as an innocent and overwhelmingly happy state. But here, Sendak captures what it's really like to be a child. The conflict, the resentment, the tantrums, the punishment, where imagination is a necessary escape.
Sendak's masterpiece didn't come into the world fully formed. The University of Connecticut contains all of his preparatory drawings, and seeing them in the flesh fulfills a dream of my own.
This is where the wild things began. I've been very lucky in my career to have handled some great works of art, but I must admit few of them have thrilled me in so personal a way as this. This is Maurice Sendak's final mock-up for Where the Wild Things Are. Now, it's tiny, it's fragile, it's almost unspeakably precious, and it has a freshness and a spontaneity that is utterly beguiling. But it also reveals Sendak's mastery of visual storytelling. You can see here, for instance, how the images grow larger and larger on the page as Max's imagination runs free. And in the middle of the book, Sendak made a really quite radical innovation for his time. 3 full-page colour spreads, one after the other, with no words at all.
Once Sendak had completed the design for the book, he made finished paintings for every page. They are exquisite.
This has always been my favourite single picture in Where the Wild Things Are, and it shows the moment that Max's small bedroom begins to be transformed into a vast forest. And seeing it in the flesh like this, I'm reminded what a fine work of art it really is. The surfaces are surprisingly painterly, and the vitality and variety of the hatched lines is really quite something to behold. And it is filled with lovely visual jokes. The way the trees turn his bed into a 4-poster, the way the pot plant is dwarfed by the forest, and the way the moon through the window looks like an eye of one of the monsters that Max is about to meet. Now, I think this picture is profoundly autobiographical. It is based on Sendak's own experiences as a child, when he spent days stuck in his bedroom, bedbound, suffering from various illnesses. But it's also about escape from those experiences. It's not an accident that Max's eyes are closed. He is in the process of dreaming. And this picture is about his ability, indeed all of our abilities, to create great new worlds from the imagination.
Sometimes, and in some places, dreams aren't a luxury, they are a necessity. The only way to recover from a series of nightmares. In the years after World War II, Italy had to start again. 2 decades of fascism and 6 years of war had unravelled the fabric of the nation. But then something miraculous happened. Italy reinvented itself. It transformed itself from a poor, traditional agrarian country into a world leader in high fashion and modern style. Its new identity came largely out of the blue and was developed at break, exploded into life and brought with it a constellation of new filmmakers, including Roberto Rossellini, Vittorio De Sica and Luchino Visconti. All of them were marvellous, original directors, but the greatest of them, in my view, was Federico Fellini. Fellini's path to filmmaking had been circuitous. After failing to qualify as a lawyer, he became a street artist, then a reporter, before directing his first film in 1950. Like Maurice Sendak, Fellini was a dreamer. His films blur the line between reality and hallucinatory fantasy, a line Fellini himself walked when he experimented with LSD.
An artist lives always in the imagination, so the barrier between the sensorial reality and his imagination is very vague, you know? Yeah. So this kind of drug really opened a door in a different dimension.
His greatest rumination on the new Italian dream was his 1960 film La Dolce Vita. It begins with a city's rooftops. That opening scene is so marvellously, mischievously loaded. It's Fellini's take on the second coming of Christ with bikinis, but it's also his way of representing Rome and Italy at a crossroads, because that flyover takes us on a journey from Italy's past onto its future, from the Roman aqueducts, over the building sites of the post-war revival, and on into the glamorous, hedonistic Italy that was just beginning to emerge. After spending the evening together, Marcello becomes obsessed with the unattainable celebrity. That night, he follows her through the quiet streets of Rome. What follows is one of the most poetic scenes in cinema. Like Marcello, Fellini's camera is infatuated. The moment that Marcello reaches out to touch Sylvia, but then pulls back, almost as if he knows she isn't real, or at least realises he can never have her. Because she, like all celebrities, is ultimately but an image. Than 2 minutes long. And it contains just a handful of words, but it is soaked so deeply into our collective conscious that we all know it, even if we haven't seen the film. So why has it become so famous? Well, partly it's the staggering, hypnotic beauty of the whole thing, but it's also because that scene seems to crystallize the Italian dream itself, La Dolce Vita, the sweet life. Although, of course, in this case, it's a dream that doesn't come true. La Dolce Vita also introduced the world to an entirely new form of image making. The first professional paparazzi who emerged in the 1950s realised something quite profound. Though the world was awash with images of celebrities, those images were rigorously controlled. The paparazzi understood that the public wanted, just occasionally, to see their heroes looking normal, even unattractive, to glimpse the reality that lay behind the dream. Paparazzi were big game hunters, tracking down their subjects and selling their shots to the highest bidder. The most ruthless of these predators was a Bronx-born photographer called Ron Galella.
I believe in what I do. So I love my work, photojournalism, and paparazzi is just a tool that must be used to capture celebrities as they really are in a more truthful light.
While filmmakers and ad men were constructing elaborate fantasy worlds, paparazzi tried to dismantle them. Galella understood that we're all desperate to see beyond the velvet rope. He made many enemies. Marlon Brando once punched him so hard he broke his jaw. The next time Galella photographed him, he came prepared. But his favourite target was JFK's widow, Jackie Onassis. Galella stalked her everywhere. He photographed her tens of thousands of times, usually without her permission. Yet this troubling relationship produced an image of serendipitous beauty.
On the 7th of October 1971, Galella was in the Upper East Side when he saw Jackie on the other side of the street. He jumped into a taxi and followed her north, taking photographs as he went. But at the corner of 90th and Madison, the driver blew his horn. Jackie turned and smiled, and as she did so, a gust of wind blew her hair across her face. Galella knew instantly that he'd taken the shot of his life. Galella called this photograph his Mona Lisa. I'm not sure I'd go that far, but it is quite beautiful image, all dynamic and backlit, capturing that most manicured of celebrities looking, frankly, a bit of a mess. In that split second, Galella pictured the reality behind the Jackie Onassis dream, though if anything, it is even more bewitching.
Galella's work raises difficult questions. Was it an invasion of privacy? Was it harassment? And are we, as consumers of such images, complicit in what the paparazzi do? No artist reflected on this obsession more relentlessly than Andy Warhol. He is most famous for his screen prints of the era's biggest stars: Elvis, Marilyn Monroe, Liz Taylor, which transformed people into almost religious icons. But his experiments with film interrogate stardom in a more subtle way.
It's just, you don't have to do anything. Just what you're doing. Yeah, you can move. But not too much. Oh, this is so glamorous.
Warhol asked hundreds of his friends, many of them famous, to sit still and silent for 3 minutes, the length of a roll of 16mm film. He then ran them back in slow motion, making each film almost 5 minutes long, showing his subjects looking awkward and exposed. He called them screen tests.
Warhol's screen tests are powerful because of what they don't do. This is film without any of the usual filmmaker's tricks. Warhol's not using editing to construct narrative or music to build mood. He's not trying to create a fantasy world into which his viewers can escape. These films actually appear to deconstruct our fantasies as we watch the veneer of celebrity slowly being peeled away.
Every sitter is subject to the same scrutinizing gaze of Warhol's camera, but they all respond in different ways. Lou Reed wears sunglasses as if to protect himself from the burning glare of the lens. Dennis Hopper looks like a sullen boy. Edie Sedgwick stares back at the camera in defiance.
For me, Andy Warhol's screen tests capture the truth about celebrity far more successfully than his famous screen prints, because they have an illusory and ultimately ephemeral quality, just like fame itself. Because when his rolls of film reach their end, his subjects vanish into nothingness.
Not everyone wants to be famous, but all of us long for a better life. One where we're free to pursue our dreams. This is what brought David Hockney, who was born in Bradford, to Los Angeles. He arrived in the city for the first time in 1964.
Within 1 week of coming here, I thought, this is the place. It's got all the energy of the United States with the Mediterranean thrown in, which I think is a wonderful combination.
Before Hockney, few artists had painted the suburbs of Los Angeles, and even fewer had considered them beautiful. But Hockney found in these homes and gardens a 20th century Arcadia, which he went on to chronicle and crystallise in paint.
Hockney reimagined the city as a paradise, bathed in sunshine, suspended in time. He found beauty in everything here. The suburban architecture, the sprinkler systems. But one feature of Los Angeles has come to define him and his work ever since.
Marvelous shadow.
Great artists often have obsessions. For Turner, it was the sun. For Cézanne, it was the apple. For David Hockney, it was the swimming pool. Now, Hockney loved swimming pools partly because they were a novelty. Very few people had them in the UK, so they struck him as an exotic and glamorous luxury. But he was also drawn to their visual qualities. Water, after all, is one of the most challenging and exciting substances to paint. It's an endless oscillation of light and colour, objects and reflections, surfaces and depths.
But as Hockney stared into the pools of Los Angeles, he didn't just see beautiful shapes. He saw beautiful men. As an openly gay man, the swimming pool was a symbol of freedom, the freedom to express desires still deemed unacceptable back in Britain. Hockney's work was seductive but provocative, subverting the American myth of masculinity. Do we love these paintings because of their formal perfection, or because they capture and freeze for eternity his dream of a different life? Hockney's pool paintings were part of a larger sexual revolution. Its effects reverberated through the art world, publishing, and of course pornography. Almost all of these images were made by men, for men. Male photographers competed to create ever more sexualized pictures. One of them became so notorious he was known as the King of Kink.
Wait, yeah, let me see those teeth. Yeah, oh yes, that's what. Hey, when you take it all your mouth, turn your mouth to me. There.
Like Hockney, Helmut Newton was an escape artist. Born into a Jewish family in Berlin, he fled Nazi Germany at the age of 18 with 2 cameras in his possession. He eventually settled here in Paris, where he got a full-time job with French Vogue.
In 1971, Newton was on a photo shoot when he suffered a near-fatal heart attack. During his convalescence, he decided to change his life and his career completely. His photographs became more personal, infused with his own dreams and fantasies.
After his brush with mortality, Newton's work took on a darker, more provocative tone. But it elevated fashion photography to the status of art.
In many respects, Newton's images weren't that different from those of, say, Marlborough. They too were adverts, they too were designed to sell things. Not cheap products like cigarettes, of course, but the luxurious creations of high fashion. What set Newton apart, though, was his determination to push the limits of both advertising and fashion. The perfect fashion photograph, he once said, is a photograph that does not look like a fashion photograph.
While undeniably powerful, much of Newton's work is deeply problematic. It is the epitome of the male gaze. His models are often trapped or bound, seemingly against their will, captured in fantasy tableau of bondage, pornography, prostitution, even murder.
To me, the women that are photographed is a commodity. Some young model said to me, "Oh, but Helmut, that's not me." I said, "My dear, I'm not interested in you. You're getting paid to be made into what I want."
In 1976, Newton was asked by Male Vogue to take some photographs for the distinguished French company Hermès, which had been manufacturing expensive leather goods since the first half of the 19th century. Newton had spent an afternoon in their flagship store in Paris, but all he could think about, as always, was sex. Now, Hermès had insisted that Newton's photographs feature their signature saddle. So Newton took a couple of models across the road to the Hotel Alexander, booked out the Marlene Dietrich suite, and began experimenting. And this is one of the results. Newton's model is bent over a bed, wearing jodhpurs and riding boots. And on top of her back, Newton has placed a top-of-the-range Hermès saddle. And the people at Hermès were horrified.
It isn't hard to see why. Newton has turned his model into a submissive animal, ready to be overpowered and controlled by the men who stare at her. Is this work misogynistic? Are we as viewers complicit in Newton's worldview? If a woman had made these images, would we feel differently about them?
Helmut Newton always claimed that he wanted to empower women. And it's certainly true that he took many, many photographs of strong, heroic women who impress and intimidate. But there's always been the accusation that he was actually objectifying, even demeaning women. Now, my own view is that he was actually doing a bit of both. But there's no getting away from the fact that he was ultimately a man, very often stripping women naked and presenting them to a primarily male audience.
Newton's fiercest critics belonged to a powerful new movement, led by women who objected to their own objectification. Feminist artists subverted the sexualized imagery that surrounded them. Hannah Wilker, a sculptor and performance artist, covered her body with wads of gum, folded into tiny abstract sculptures of female genitalia. It's completely at odds with the hypersexualized work of Newton. In Britain, Linda Sterling hijacked images of consumerism, fashion and sexualization, twisting them into grotesque collages, invoking the earlier work of Hannah Höch. She even wore a meat dress 30 years before Lady Gaga. But the masterpiece of feminist art is surely this. The Dinner Party by Judy Chicago is a vast and wildly ambitious installation that took longer to make than the Sistine Chapel ceiling. It involved more than 400 volunteers and cost $250,000.
I've often fantasized about the perfect dinner party where I bring together all my heroes around a table. Well, here, Judy Chicago has turned that dream into a reality. This remarkable banquet is attended by 1,038 distinguished guests from history. All of them, crucially, are women. And Chicago has gathered them here.
Work of art that would symbolize our heritage so that those achievements could never be erased from history again.
This is the first place setting. It begins at the very beginning, with the earliest deities ever imagined by humans, which weren't male, but female. The centerpiece is this incandescent plate, which is decorated with the unmistakable form of a vulva. It is yet another naked female body. But this is not designed to amuse and titillate like Helmut Newton's nude models. This is a vulva of cosmic significance, a symbol of creation, of the universe and everything in it.
From prehistory to the 20th century, the women seated at the table are deities mesmerizing, even spiritual. A Last Supper with the men removed.
The Dinner Party isn't just a great work of feminist art. It is, in my view, one of the finest artworks of the 20th century, as appealing to the mind as it is to the eyes. Like advertisers and photographers, Chicago harnessed the seductive, persuasive power of images. But she wasn't selling products or celebrities. She was selling her own dream, a vision of a civilization with women at its heart.
The Dinner Party was the product of an intensely political decade. But in the early 1980s, that mood began to change. Materialism and consumerism boomed, just as they had done in the 1950s. There was more to buy, more to desire than ever before. And with the dawn of 24-hour cable television, there was also much more to see. This was a world overwhelmed with choice and oversaturated with images. On the 1st of August 1981, MTV came on air for the first time.
7, 6, 5, 4. We've gone for main engine start. We have main engine start.
The channel announced itself with a bang, using footage of the Apollo 11 moon landing.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock and roll.
It was a mischievous conceit, but it was also a canny one. The creators of MTV were deliberately comparing their new venture not simply to a great event in human history, but a great event in broadcasting history.
Turn it on! Leave it on! America! See the music you want to see!
I want my MTV. All right.
I want my MTV.
MTV did something remarkable. It turned music into a visual medium.
I want my MTV! Yeah, too much is never enough.
Artists had used films to illustrate or promote their music since as early as the 1920s. But in the 1980s, thanks largely to MTV, music videos, as they were called, became an integral part of their work, not just commercially, but creatively.
Music videos essentially functioned as extended adverts. Adverts that created seductive worlds of sex, glamour and celebrity to sell not just their music, but the artists themselves. Artists who understood how to use images could become superstars. 40 years ago, this place, the Music Building in New York, was part of an underground scene that gave birth to the most celebrated image maker in pop music.
Madonna wasn't created in a boardroom. She fashioned herself in the clubs, studios and squats of 1980s New York. She drew her inspiration from drag acts and graffiti artists, as well as the photographers who paid her a few dollars to model for them. She was like a sponge who soaked up all kinds of cultural reference, old and new, high and low, everywhere she went.
Madonna, more than anyone else, became a master of the music video.
To me, it was like making little movies, and I've always been excited about that. So it was like confining it to the 3 minutes of length of a song.
She used her videos to make art, to scandalize and to sell, reinventing herself constantly, trying out different images and personas. Every video offered a new fantasy. Her use of Catholic imagery was Fellini-esque. Her riffs on fame and celebrity referenced Warhol. In Helmut Newton's work, images like these might pass for exploitation. In the hands of an MTV feminist, they look like liberation. Madonna has often been accused of cultural appropriation, cannibalizing the creations of others, exploiting them for her own purposes, and then discarding them like unwanted clothes. But she was hardly the only perpetrator. It is a defining feature of modern and postmodern culture. The Cubists did it, the pioneers of photomontage did it, Francis Bacon did it. After all, how can you live in a world completely saturated with images and not end up being influenced by them? This new video culture also bled its way into fine art. Korean-born artist Namjoon Paik was fascinated by this new landscape of screens and videos, and the human obsession with watching them. This was his idea of paradise, one produced by cathode ray tubes.
This is a glimpse of a video landscape of tomorrow, when you will be able to switch to any TV station on the earth, and TV guides will be as fat as the Manhattan telephone book.
Good morning. You've made it, and we've made it to 1984.
Paik became one of the first artists to broadcast video art by satellite live around the globe.
You're about to attempt a crash landing,
reaching millions of confused viewers. He even coined the term electronic superhighway more than a decade before the birth of the internet. He believed he could use this galaxy of images to create great works of art, ones that matched the masterpieces of the past. This is called Sistine Chapel. This bizarre work of art is made from dozens of projectors rigged on scaffolding that beam a cacophonous constellation of images all around me in every direction. The effect is completely overwhelming and not necessarily in a pleasant way, but it really does capture what it was like to belong to the MTV generation, a generation bombarded with channels and images 24 hours a day. There are abstract graphics and naked women. There are some of Paik's own video works. And of course the pop stars who, thanks to MTV, were now television stars. All of these images share the brittle vividness so characteristic of video, all blocky textures and static lines. At first sight, it's almost exhaustingly ugly. But if you submit yourself to it, the piece takes on a sort of hypnotic, brutal beauty. I don't think it's a coincidence that Paik called this piece Sistine Chapel. By projecting these images at this size onto these walls, he was presenting them almost as frescoes, which, like Michelangelo's paintings, create a mythology, a paradise befitting their age. And I think ultimately, Paik was trying to say that popular culture, and television specifically, is our society's religion, whether we like it or not. Images have a special hold over us. Whether they are picture books, or family photographs, or the twinkling screens that now surround us on every side, images possess a beauty and a directness that is very difficult to resist. They sell us a fantasy of a better life, where the sun always shines and the people are beautiful. Some of these visions are innocent, others are not. We can debate their meaning, question their morals, but we can't help being seduced. Because in the end, who wants to live in a world without dreams? Can we really trust what we see? Explore the technology behind deepfake image manipulation and discover the cultural significance of the lens throughout history. Go to bbc.co.uk/Age of the Image and follow the links to the Open University.
Investigating the most enigmatic of images tomorrow night, a brand new series starts with Van Gogh's self-portrait with bandaged ear, The Art Mysteries with Valdemar Januchak, here at 8:30. Now, the 15-year-old crowned the first Queen of England, the life and death of Mary Jane Grey, next on BBC4.